Good afternoon, friends. It's Wednesday, November 4th. I'm coming to you from my office today and tomorrow rather than the worship space because that place has been transformed into a Rhythm Method 4 studio. They're doing a Zoom concert tomorrow, and I'll be curious to see how that works. But we continue with election week as we await results later in the week. This has been a year filled with firsts for me. The first time I can remember not celebrating Easter with at least 2 worship services. First time that all of our worship services have been broadcasted. First time I've not been able to attend at least one baseball game in decades. First time I've not been able to gather with my wonderful extended family for an Easter gathering and Easter egg hunt for over 25 years. First time I've gotten a flu shot. First time in 15 years I've not held chapel time with our preschoolers. First time I've had to use Zoom for a Bible study class. First time to hire 2 administrative assistants within months. First time I've ever had to turn down a family for a funeral request because they couldn't promise to keep the attendance to 30 people or less. The first time I've not been able to sit with families while somebody was having surgery in a hospital. First time I was not able to make a hospital visit, a rehab visit, or home visit in person for almost 8 months. First time not to go to the polls to vote in person for 47 years. And finally, the first time that I've ever used a mail-in ballot for any election in those 47 years of eligibility. Then there are a few never expected moments that have recurred. Those of you who were politically active early this century remember the hanging chads in Florida during the 2000 presidential election. Can't you keep seeing that iconic picture of the guy holding the chad up with a magnifying glass, trying to determine was it for a vote for Bush or for Gore? Or how about those of you from the previous century who might remember going to sleep having heard that Thomas Dewey had defeated the incumbent Harry S. Truman in the presidential race, only to wake the next morning to discover that was a mistake on the front page of, I think it was the Chicago Tribune. Well, here we are again in 2020, 20 years after the hanging chads, and as if this year could offer anything different, patiently waiting for the results of a presidential election. I know it's uncomfortable, no matter which side you're on. We want to know who won. I want this to be over. I went to bed last night with the firm belief that nothing was going to happen overnight. There were just too many challenges in front of us. And while I would like my candidate to be declared the winner, I believe there's a bigger issue here. The election isn't over until all the ballots are counted. I know that statement is like a red flag before the charging bull, but for me it is also an absolute. Now, I stayed away from the polling place because of a concern about COVID. And I noticed that a great many others in California and across the nation did the very same thing. We used a different ballot system to cast my vote, and maybe you did for your vote as well. I want my vote to count, just as I want all those other ballots to count. It matters not which candidate those ballots represent. For me, the election isn't over until all of them have been counted. Now, I know that I am anxious about how this turns out, so I can only imagine how the candidates and their major supporters might be feeling even more anxious. Yes, this election season is seemingly lasting forever. But really, are we all that impatient that we're willing to disenfranchise voters? I sure do wish that every state started counting the ballots when they received them, as California apparently did. And I wonder why Pennsylvania didn't start counting them until today. But I do know that each state gets to set their own process. So this will indeed lengthen our wait time. I get it. We are an impatient people. I remember back when, just before Alex was born, in the last century again, somebody told us that we needed to go get a microwave oven. I thought that was an odd statement that you had to have a microwave before you could have a child. Wondered what the connection was. So I said, why? The answer was, did I really want to stand in the kitchen waiting for the water to boil, then to put the bottle in the boiling water and wait for a few moments so the milk could warm up before feeding him as he was screaming at 2:30 a.m.? Well, isn't that what my mother did for me? I responded. But we did buy a microwave oven. We used it for lots of things because we want our food cooked right away. We have instant rice, instant oatmeal, fast food. We get frustrated when the internet is too slow or that computer takes too long to boot up in the morning. Were you also one of the ones who were tapping your toes when the refs and the umps went to the video to review a disputed call, wondering, how long will this take? But that's just one side of the story, this impatience piece. The other side, I think, is even more crucial. The potential for disenfranchising people in the vote process. We need to stop doing that. Now, I don't believe that I have ever been disenfranchised. Maybe that's because I'm part of the established group. But I've heard from people that I trust that they have been disenfranchised. ID cards being required, ridiculous exercises of counting jelly beans in a jar, records suddenly being removed from the voting rolls. You have to answer questions that nobody else had to answer. You name it, it has happened to people before. This might be just one more of those moments when we're attempting to disenfranchise people, not accepting their vote. Because why? We don't like the way they voted? Well, if our democracy is to be valued, then let's not cheapen it, please. I believe we can wait before we throw our big celebration party, or I cry in my adult drink. Let's get it right. Let's accept the results as we have done before. Accept them. Live with them. May not be the one I want, but I know I did my bit. You did your bit. And it's the way it is. It's unfair. Some people win. Some people lose. Our system is set up that way when there's only two major candidates running. But let the winning be done fairly. I remember about a year or so ago, somebody complaining to me about how the Astros stole the World Series from the Dodgers. They were livid about cheating. I wonder if that person is still livid about the potential of cheating in an election period. And then there's this post from Dan Rather this morning. Now, I've been following Dan Rather for a year or more on Facebook. And Dan writes the following this morning. Quote, I find myself thinking of Dr. King a lot this morning. I started covering him early in the civil rights movement, when defeats outnumbered victories. But I saw in him a steadiness and an unshakable belief in the justice of his cause. He never gave up, and he moved mountains. Let's not give up either. Let's not force others to give up on the dream of being involved in the democratic process. Let's not give up on people having their voice heard, their vote counted. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. We'll be back in the worship space because Rhythm Method 4 will have by that time broken down their studio and we'll be back to normal. So I look forward to seeing you. And until then, please, 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 remember, wash your hands a couple times a day, 20 seconds at a time. Use hand lotion, please. Keep them nice and soft. Stay home if you're sick, not feeling well. Love one another. Love one another. That means we patiently wait for the process to play out. Practice the important physical distancing. Stay 6 feet apart from each other. And when you can't, put that mask on. Wear that mask, please. It's important because it shows we love one another. And of course, Sergeant Esterhaus reminds me, be careful out there.